In 304 BC, a merchant named Zeno loaded his entire fortune onto a ship in Phoenicia. Every coin, every good he owned, everything he had worked his whole life to build, and sent it toward Athens to sell. The ship sank. Everything he owned disappeared into the Mediterranean in a single night. Most men would have broken. Zeno washed up in a strange city with nothing, wandered into a bookshop out of sheer boredom, overheard a reading of Socratic dialogue, and by the time he stood back up, he had accidentally begun building the calmest, most resilient school of thought the ancient world would ever produce. We call it Stoicism. And it exists, quite literally, because one man refused to let total disaster destroy his peace of mind. Maybe you've never lost a fortune at sea, but you know exactly what it feels like to lose something you were counting on in a single moment. A diagnosis, a layoff email, a relationship ending mid-sentence, a plan collapsing the week before it mattered most. The details change. The feeling of the floor disappearing underneath you doesn't. That's the part almost nobody tells you when they talk about staying calm. Calm isn't the absence of chaos. Calm is what you build in the middle of it, and most people never learn how because they've never been handed the actual instructions. Just vague advice like breathe or don't stress, none of which works when your hands are actually shaking, your inbox is on fire, or someone you love just said something you can't unhear. Today you're getting the real instructions. 10 lessons from Stoic philosophy, pulled directly from the men who invented the entire discipline of staying calm under pressure. Zeno, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. Translated into exactly what to think and what to do the next time your mind starts spiraling. Not poetry, not vague inspiration, a working system for inner peace and mental clarity that has survived 2,000 years for one simple reason. It actually works, regardless of what century you apply it in. And I need you to watch this one differently than most videos. Don't just let it play in the background while you scroll something else. The 10th lesson connects directly back to how this video opens, and if you skip ahead, it won't land the same way. So stay with me all the way through, especially if you're someone who's tried every breathing app and self-help book and still feels like calm is something other people have access to, and you don't. Lesson 1. The line between yours and not yours. Epictetus, the great teacher of Stoic philosophy, built his entire system on a single distinction. And once you truly understand it, you can never think the same way again. Some things are within your power. Everything else is not. Your judgments, your effort, your reactions, entirely yours. The weather, other people's opinions, the outcome of tomorrow's meeting, never yours. Picture an archer training outside Nicopolis, exactly the image Epictetus himself used to teach this idea. The archer studies his stance, controls his breathing, draws the string with total precision, and releases. A gust of wind bends the arrow off course at the last second. Does the archer collapse in shame? No, because he already knew the wind was never his to command. His only job was the form, the release, the discipline of the shot itself. The target was always going to answer to forces beyond him. Think about how differently you'd move through an average Tuesday if you actually lived by this. The traffic, the delayed reply, the coworker's mood, the algorithm, none of it was ever yours to steer. Your preparation was. Your reaction is. That's the entire territory you actually govern. And most people spend 98% of their emotional energy fighting for territory outside it. Most anxiety in your life right now comes from gripping something that was never yours to hold in the first place. So here's the practice. Tonight, write down exactly what's stressing you, then draw one line down the middle of the page. On one side, write only what you can actually influence. On the other, everything else. You'll notice something uncomfortable almost immediately. Most of your stress lies entirely on the side you can't touch. Do this honestly, without cheating by writing things on the wrong side just to feel more in control than you actually are. And the exercise becomes almost uncomfortably revealing. But knowing where the line sits isn't the hard part. The hard part is what happens when something crosses it anyway. When life takes something from the side that was never yours to lose in the first place. That's lesson 2, and it's the one most people actively fight against for years. Sometimes for the rest of their lives. Lesson 2. The weather doesn't apologize. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, buried more of his own children than most parents can imagine. Several of them before they reached adulthood, while ruling an empire under constant war and plague. He never pretended this didn't devastate him. What he refused to do was fight reality itself, demanding the universe rewrite what had already happened. In his private journal, the collection we now call Meditations, never intended for publication, he returned again and again to one idea: love what happens to you. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because resisting an unchangeable fact only doubles the pain, the original event, and then your ongoing war against having felt it at all. Acceptance, in the Stoic sense, is not agreement that something was good. It's simply the refusal to keep re-losing something you've already lost over and over every time your mind revisits it. Think about the last time you replayed an old argument in the shower, winning it 3 different ways in your head, hours after it ended. Nothing about that replay changed the outcome. It only made you relive the loss a second, third, and fourth time for free, entirely by choice. This is different from giving up, and it's worth being precise about that difference. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop grieving, stop working to change what's changeable, or pretend you feel nothing. It means you stop spending energy trying to alter a fact that has already become permanent, so that energy is free to go somewhere that can actually still be shaped. Here's the practice. Think of one thing right now that you keep mentally replaying. An argument, a mistake, a loss. Ask yourself one honest question. Can this be undone? If the answer is no, and it almost always is, then every ounce of energy spent fighting it is energy stolen from your actual life, the one still happening right now, in the present tense. Accepting what already happened is hard enough, but there's a harder version of acceptance still waiting for you. Accepting what's happening inside your own mind in this exact second, without letting it drag you into the past or the future. That's lesson 3. Lesson 3. The only time that exists in 65 AD. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher and advisor to emperors, was ordered by Nero to end his own life. According to the historian Tacitus, Seneca received the news calmly, comforted his weeping friends, and spent his final hours dictating his last thoughts aloud, fully present, fully composed. While his own blood left his body, he wasn't performing bravery for an audience. He had spent decades training his mind to live entirely in the current moment, because the current moment, he taught, is the only piece of time a person ever actually owns. Most suffering, Seneca wrote, doesn't come from the present at all. It comes from a mind stuck replaying yesterday or auditioning tomorrow's disasters in advance, running simulations of conversations that haven't happened yet and might never happen at all. The present moment, uncomfortable as it sometimes is almost always more survivable than the story your mind builds around it, stretched across a past you can't edit and a future you can't yet see. Here's the practice, and it takes exactly 60 seconds. When your thoughts start spiraling, stop and name, out loud or silently, 3 things you can see, 2 things you can physically feel, and 1 thing you can hear right now and in this room. It's simple on purpose. It forces your mind out of the theater of the past and future and back into the only place your actual life is happening. This exact second, in this exact body. Being present in your worst moment is one thing, but even the Stoics admitted the mind doesn't stay present on its own. It drifts, especially toward judgment, which brings us to the lesson most people get completely backwards. Lesson 4, the mind behind the mirror. Let's return to Zeno for a moment, the man whose shipwreck opened this video. Years later, when someone asked him about the disaster that took everything he owned, he is said to have replied that it was the best voyage of his life because it wrecked him directly onto the shore of philosophy. Same event, completely different meaning, chosen deliberately, after the fact, by a man who could just as easily have spent the rest of his life bitter about the sea. This is the Stoic idea Epictetus made famous, and it might be the single most repeated line in all of Stoic philosophy. People are disturbed not by things themselves, but by the opinions they attach to those things. A canceled flight is neutral. Losing your job is neutral. A silence after a hard conversation is neutral. The event delivers raw data. Your mind is the one writing the headline, and headlines, unlike events, can always be rewritten. Here's the practice. Next time something goes wrong, ask one specific question before you let yourself spiral. What does this situation make possible that comfort never could? It won't erase the frustration, but it interrupts the automatic story your brain wants to tell. And that interruption alone is often enough to bring your nervous system back down from a spike to a simmer. Once you control your interpretation, the next enemy isn't outside you anymore. It's buried inside you, in the things you've quietly convinced yourself you need in order to finally feel okay. Lesson 5 is about to expose one of them. Lesson 5, the cost of wanting more. Seneca, despite being one of the wealthiest men in Rome, wrote constantly about the quiet exhaustion of unlimited desire. In one of his letters to his friend Lucilius, he described a landowner with estates so vast he couldn't even name the boundaries of his own property, restless and dissatisfied, while a fisherman nearby, content with a single small boat, slept soundly every night without a single guard posted at his door. Wealth, Seneca argued, was never actually the problem. Dependency on more of it was. Every craving you chase promises calm on the other side of getting it, and almost never delivers it, because the finish line moves the instant you arrive, quietly resetting itself just out of reach. The Stoic path to inner peace isn't acquiring more, it's needing less, which is a completely different skill than most modern self-improvement content ever actually teaches you, because needing less doesn't sell anything. Here's the practice. Identify one recurring thought that sounds like, "If only I had that, I'd finally relax." Write it down, then honestly ask whether the last time you got something similar actually delivered lasting calm, or just a few days of relief before the wanton quietly returned, wearing a slightly different outfit. Most people discover the pattern the moment they see it written out plainly in their own handwriting. Wanting less quiets the noise coming from outside you. But there's a noise that comes from inside you that most people never learn to control. And Stoic philosophy has a very specific name for it, one that shows up in nearly every ancient text on the subject. Quick pause halfway through. If you're finding even one of these genuinely useful, hit like right now. It's a small action, but it's the single biggest signal that tells this platform to show the video to someone else who needs exactly this tonight. All right, 5 lessons in, 5 to go, And this next one is the one people ask me about more than any other. Lesson 6. The weight you didn't need to carry. Seneca wrote an entire essay called On Anger, and inside it he tells the story of a Roman noble named Vedius Pollio, who once ordered a slave thrown into a pool of man-eating eels for the crime of breaking a single crystal cup. The Emperor Augustus, present at the dinner, was horrified, freed the slave on the spot, and had every piece of that man's crystal collection smashed in front of him. Seneca uses the story as a warning. This is where unchecked anger eventually leads. Punishment wildly disproportionate to the offense, because rage doesn't measure accurately. It only escalates, feeding on itself until it no longer resembles the original problem at all. Anger, to the Stoics, was never really about the other person. It was alone against your own peace of mind, taken out instantly and repaid slowly, over hours, sometimes days, sometimes years, if it hardens into a grudge. The best cure, Seneca insisted, was delay, because anger that has to wait even a few minutes almost always loses its grip on you. Here's the practice. The next time you feel anger rising, physically pause before responding. Count slowly to 10, or simply leave the room for 60 seconds. It feels almost too simple to work. It works because most anger is a reflex, and reflexes lose their power the moment you introduce even a small gap between the trigger and your reaction. The next time a text message makes your chest tighten, or a comment online makes you want to type something you'll regret, try the 60-second pause before you touch the keyboard at all. Almost every message you're relieved you never sent was written in exactly that first, unfiltered minute. Letting go of anger clears real space inside you. What you choose to build in that space is what separates a merely calm person from someone with actual character. Which brings us to the framework the Stoics use to fill it, deliberately, instead of leaving it empty. Lesson 7. The 4 pillars. Stoic philosophy rests on 4 virtues, and together they form the architecture that holds up everything else on this list. Wisdom. The ability to see situations clearly instead of through fear or wishful thinking. Courage. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act rightly despite it. Justice. Treating others with the fairness you'd want extended to yourself, even when no one's checking. And temperance. The discipline to want and to react in proportion, never more than the moment actually calls for. Marcus Aurelius returned to these 4 virtues constantly in his private writing, using them almost like a checklist before difficult decisions. Not, what do I feel like doing, but what does wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance ask of me right now? It's a remarkably practical filter, even 2,000 years and countless empires later, because human decision-making hasn't actually changed that much. You can see all 4 in a single decision he actually made. When his own trusted general turned against him and briefly declared himself emperor, Marcus didn't react with blind rage. Wisdom told him to check the facts before assuming the worst. Courage let him face the threat without panic. Justice kept him from ordering the kind of brutal, sweeping revenge other emperors would have. And temperance meant his response, once the threat had passed, was measured instead of excessive. 4 virtues, 1 decision, and a mind that stayed remarkably level while an empire briefly shook. Here's the practice. Before your next difficult conversation or decision, run it through the 4 questions in order. What's actually true here? What does courage require? What's fair to everyone involved? And what response is proportionate to what actually happened? You won't need long. Usually 1 clear answer emerges before you even finish the list. These 4 pillars hold up a calm mind while you're alive. But Stoic philosophy also asks you to make peace with something far bigger than daily stress. The plain fact that absolutely none of this lasts forever. Not the good parts and not the bad ones either. Lesson 8. Sand through the hourglass. Marcus Aurelius, watching triumphal processions move through Rome, crowds cheering names that history would forget within a single generation, wrote himself a quiet, sobering reminder. Nearly everything you're anxious about right now will be irrelevant in a remarkably short amount of time. Not because it doesn't matter today, because nothing, good or bad, stays fixed in place forever, no matter how permanent it currently feels from the inside. This isn't meant to make life feel small or meaningless. It's meant to loosen the grip of whatever's currently consuming you at 3 in the morning. The argument that feels enormous tonight, the deadline that feels like the end of the world, the embarrassment that feels permanent. None of it is as fixed as your nervous system currently insists. It is in this moment. Go back 5 years and try to remember what felt this urgent back then. Most people struggle to even recall the specific crisis, let alone still feel its weight, which tells you almost everything you need to know about how much weight to actually give tonight's version of the same feeling. Here's the practice. When something feels unbearably urgent, ask one calming question. Will this matter in 5 years? If the honest answer is no, you've just given your nervous system permission to stand down, even slightly. And slightly is often all you actually need in that particular moment to get through it. If everything passes, the good and the bad, a natural question follows. If none of it lasts, why bother noticing any of it at all? Stoic philosophy has an answer, and it's the exact opposite of what you'd expect from a philosophy so focused on impermanence. Lesson 9. The debt you forgot you were paying in 41. 1 AD, Seneca was exiled to the island of Corsica, stripped of his status, his career, and his life in Rome, on the order of the Emperor Claudius, on charges many historians now consider politically motivated. Cut off from nearly everything he'd built over decades, he still wrote during those years about the practice of counting what remained rather than mourning what was gone. His mind, his ability to write, his relationships that survived the distance, the ordinary fact of still being alive to notice any of it at all. Gratitude in Stoic philosophy isn't a soft, decorative habit reserved for good days. It's a direct counterweight to the constant wanting from Lesson 5. Where desire stretches your attention toward what's missing, gratitude quietly pulls it back toward what's already here, unnoticed, sitting right in front of you the entire time. Here's the practice. Each night, name 3 specific things from that exact day, not generic ones, specific. A particular conversation, a particular meal, one specific moment of quiet you almost didn't notice. The specificity matters more than people expect. Vague gratitude fades by morning. Specific gratitude sticks and compounds night after night. Within a couple of weeks, most people notice something unexpected happening automatically during the day itself. They start scanning for the good moment before it's even over, simply because they know they'll need to name it later that night. Gratitude closes the gap between what you have and what you keep chasing. But there's one final shift left, the one that turns everything you've learned tonight from a temporary calm into a lasting character that holds under real pressure. Lesson 10. The river that never stops. Epictetus never claimed to have arrived at some finished, permanent state of calm, and he was suspicious of anyone who claimed they had. He described the entire practice of Stoic philosophy as ongoing progress, not perfection. A river you keep stepping into, never a shore you finally reach and stand still on for the rest of your life. Let's close where we opened. Picture Zeno, still damp from the wreck that took everything, walking out of that Athens bookshop toward a painted porch called the Stoa, where he would spend the rest of his life teaching. He didn't walk out cured of hardship forever. He walked out with a practice, one he'd keep refining imperfectly for the rest of his life, one small correction at a time. That's the actual promise of Stoicism, not permanent, effortless calm, a durable, repeatable method for getting calm back every single time you inevitably lose it. Here's the final practice, and it's the one that quietly ties the other 9 together. Each evening, ask yourself 3 short questions. Where did I act well today? Where did I fall short? And what will I do differently tomorrow? Epictetus' own students used almost this exact routine every night, without fail. It takes under 2 minutes, and over months, it quietly rebuilds the entire architecture of how your mind handles pressure, one honest evening at a time. 10 lessons, one thread running through all of them. Control what's yours. Release what isn't. Live inside the only moment you actually own. Choose your interpretation before it chooses you. Want less. Release anger quickly before it hardens. Act through wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Remember that nothing lasts, the hard seasons and the easy ones alike. Notice what remains instead of only what's missing. And keep practicing deliberately instead of expecting perfection to arrive on its own. None of these 10 lessons require you to change your career, your relationships, or your personality overnight. They require you to change what you do in the 60 seconds right after something goes wrong, which is, not coincidentally, the exact 60 seconds that used to run entirely on autopilot. If one of these 10 lessons is sitting with you right now, tell me which one in the comments right now, while it's still fresh. Not after you close the app. Share this with the one person in your life who's been white-knuckling their way through a stressful season lately. They need lesson 6 more than they'd ever admit out loud. And if you want the deeper Stoic practices most people never discover, the ones for grief, fear, and real crisis, subscribe, because that's exactly where we're going next. Stoicism was never about becoming a different, harder, colder version of yourself. It was one shipwrecked man's discovery that calm isn't something you're handed. It's something you build. One small, repeatable practice at a time, starting from absolutely nothing but a bookshop and a bad week. You already have everything Zeno had the day he walked into that bookshop with wet clothes and an empty pocket. Start practicing tonight. Not someday, not once things calm down on their own. Because for most of us, they never fully do. And waiting for calm before you start practicing calm is exactly the trap Zeno never fell into after that ship went down.